Today we're sewing a free pattern. It is the Racerback Tee Dress by Hey June. It is my go-to summer dress for girls, sizes 1T to 8. Hi, I'm Christine. I'm here to encourage you to sew with knits if you're a beginner. Knits do not have to be scary. I'm going to link below, if you've not sewn with knits before, a video where I give out tips, techniques, and some tools that I use that make knit sewing beginner friendly. So let me tell you a little bit about the pattern before we go up to the sewing room. There are 5 pattern pieces. There are 2 pieces for the back. You have an upper piece where you can see the shape of the racer back. This is cut on the fold and it's joined with the lower back piece. You can see this piece is a little bit longer or wider here. This will be gathered gently to meet this, and then we will sew them right sides together, and it's going to be a nice, cute, gentle gather along the back. Then for the front piece, it's simple one piece. We get an idea of the shape. This is a size 3T, and then you just have a neckband and an armband piece. These, I'm going to be using some ribbing that I have. And since this dress is a great scrap buster, I'm going to be using some leftover fabric I have, and this will be my dress. So let's head up to the sewing room. So if you're not sewing for children, the techniques that I will demonstrate while sewing up this dress can easily be transferred to an adult pattern. So I'm going to be using this Staff of France cotton jersey. I have used this before on another garment, and I have to say I didn't love sewing with it, but my granddaughter loves wearing it, and I have seen that it does hold up well to many washes and many wears. I had a big chunk left over. Not gonna lie, I was very tempted to donate the fabric, but really all it was an extra little step, and it'll be fine to work with. And that extra step is heavy duty spray starch. So I sprayed the fabric and ironed it before I cut the pattern pieces out. I'm gonna be doing the neckband and the armbands out of this coordinated ribbing. Cut out all my pattern pieces, and I have put a little bit of interfacing. Let me show you what I use. The pattern uses a 3/8 inch seam allowance, or 1 centimeter, and I use this 1/2 inch stay tape, and I have ironed it to the back shoulders of my upper back piece. Now you can see this one in particular, I really used a lot of spray starch on this. So I've ironed them on the back side of the shoulders. This will stabilize the shoulder seams and keep it nice and neat. My favorite method for gathering fabric is to use my serger. I do have a video on my channel on how to do that if you would like to see how that is done. It is quicker, it is easier, and you get some nice even gathers. But on something small like this, I don't mind using the sewing machine. So we'll head over. I will lengthen my stitch length, and we will gather this upper section here. I'm all set up over here at my sewing machine. I've done a practice stitch for my gathering, and I'm happy with that. So let me tell you about my settings, and then we'll move down and get a close look and get the gathering done. I have put in a stretch needle. I have attached my walking foot, and I'm using a stitch length of 4.5 to do the gathering. The Maraflex thread in my machine means that I don't have to use a zigzag stitch, and it's not gonna pop. So let's go and start our gathering. I'm gonna do 2 rows of gathering stitches. I think it gives you a nicer gathering if you do 2 or 3 rows as opposed to just doing a single one. And it gives you a little insurance in case your thread breaks, but I know our thread's not gonna break. So I've moved my needle over, and it's gonna be inside the seam allowance. I got my long tail, and I'm just gonna stitch away. And I want a nice long tail again, so I'm pulling extra thread out. When I pull it together, I like to pull the bobbin thread. Your bobbin thread's gonna be a little looser and you're gonna get nicer gathers and have an easier time of it if you are pulling the bobbin thread, which is the one on the bottom, as opposed to your needle thread. So I'm coming back in here. Again, I want to start out with a nice long tail. Put my foot down. Now I don't want to sew right on top of what I just put in. So I'm going to move my needle to the left a little bit. It's still going to be within the seam allowance, but I'm moving it over it enough so that I am not going to sew my gathering threads that I just put in. So I've got my 2 rows of gathering stitches, and I'm just going to tug on the bobbin thread, excuse me. These are the bobbin threads. And when you pull both of them, you get a nicer gather. And I'm just going to pull them. Create a gentle gather. I'll pull some from one side and then some from the other side. I tend to over gather and then zhuzh it out to meet whatever the width is. I have clipped together right sides and now I'm going to sew it to my garment. And I'm going to go over to the serger and I'm going to neaten the seam. I'm going to give this a little press and then I'm going to put the shoulders of the front and the back right sides together. I'm going to stitch that. And then I'm going to put the side seams of the front and back together and stitch that. It's really looking cute. You can see how quickly this comes together. So next we're moving on to the bands. And you can do them in whichever order you want. I think I'll do the neck band first. The arm bands will go in the same way. So I've got my piece that I cut on the fold, and part of the instructions was to make a little snip at the fold. This is going to be the center of my neck band. The little notches look like this. You want to make sure that they're going to stay within the seam allowance. So now I'm going to put my band right sides together. So along this short end, I'm going to sew it. Many patterns will say 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter. The markings on the stitch plate that I'm using right now are in metric, so I'm just using the metric option. So I'm going to line it up to my 1 centimeter for my 3/8 inch seam allowance and stitch it. And the next step is I am going to open up the seam. This will help it lay flat, like this. And then I'm going to bring the wrong sides touching. All right, I hit it with an iron. I mentioned that we were going to quarter the neck band so that we evenly space it around this neck opening. Now, if you were to use the shoulder seams as your quarter marks, it does not work on every garment because you will notice that the front dips down substantially lower than the back. So I'm going to need more of my neckband on the front of my dress than on the back of my dress for it to be evenly distributed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my center front, which I have already done, and I made a little notch. That's the center of my back. I've got the center of my front. To make it easier for you to see, I have put pins at my center front and my center back. I'm going to bring these together, put them on top of each other, and then I'm just going to work the fabric to find my quarter point. And that's where it is right here. This is my shoulder seam. So I'd say it's a good 1/2 inch. Yeah, it's 2 centimeters lower than the shoulder seam. So I'm going to make a little snip because that makes it easy for me to see what's going on. And I'm going to do the same for the other side. I have my 4 quarter points on my garment, and I'm going to make my quarter points on my neckband. So I have my prepared neckband. I'm going to use this seam for my center back. And you'll remember we did the little snip on the fold. That's going to be my center front. So I'm going to mark it with this pin. And just as we did with the dress, I'm going to bring center front and center back together. And this point over here is going to be a quarter point. And this point over here is going to be a quarter point. And that's going to divide my neckband into 4 equal points. So I'm going to make a little tiny snip. That'll make a little V point. So you just bring it together and snip off a little bit. Makes a V. And I'm going to match up the quarter points on my neckband with the quarter points on here. So now I'm going to pin my neckband to the dress, and I'm going to start with my back seam. I'm going to line it up, and I'm putting it right sides together with my dress. I'm going to pin it to the center back first. Then I'm going to pin the center front of my neckband. I'm going to make things easier on myself by using my free arm. I'm going to take my speed down a little bit because I am in no hurry here. I'm going to start at the shoulder. I want this shoulder seam to go towards the back. So I'm going to choose to start on my left front near the shoulder. I'm going to get it under the machine, and then I'm going to make a couple adjustments. Line it up with my seam allowance. I'm going to drop my needle just to anchor it for me. And take this pin out of the way. I'm going to pull slightly on the neckband as I line it up with the edge of the dress. I'm going to stitch a little bit, then I'm going to adjust the neckband and make sure that I'm just pulling this neckband and I am not pulling the dress itself. Making sure these are lined up and continuing on. I finished, I've gone all the way around. If you're just doing this on the sewing machine, you can take this over to the iron now and press it, the neckband down inside the dress, and then you could do a top stitch right about 1/8 of an inch away from this seam. That will hold down this neckband, keep it nice and neat. I think this is going to lay very flat. And then you can move on to the armholes. Now I have a serger, so I'm going to serge this, cut away some of it. Then I'm going to press it, and I am going to top stitch it. I'm going to top stitch it, and I want to line this up. I'm going to use this edge of my foot to let it run right along the neckband. And this will have my needle striking here. I can always move my needle, and I think I will. I think I will move it a little bit to the right so that it hits more in this area, because I'm going to have another band over here for my armband. It'll go in the same way as the neckband. I'm then going to increase my stitch length to 3.5. I'm going to go all the way around the neckband. Let's see. I'll go ahead and bring my speed down as low as it will go. And let's just go all the way around. You see how this edge of the fabric is riding right along next to this? If you have a cover stitch machine, you can use a cover stitch, but I wanted to show you how to do it on a simple sewing machine. Not that Astrid here is simple, but you can do this on most sewing machines. Just tie off my threads. So our neckband is in nice and neat, and we're going to use the same method for the armbands. I'm going to sew the armholes or the armbands using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I've got the first one pinned. This is my seam guide for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I see that the very edge of this lines up with the center of this gray plastic piece. So that's what I'm going to use for my seam allowance. And I'm going to place this underneath. I'm going to do the same thing I did for the neckband. I will slightly stretch my armband as I go around, and I'm just going to make sure that the end of my fabric is being caught by that gray piece, and that'll be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Let me check my stitch length, and off I go. Okay, so I have my armbands in, my neckband in. I did put a little label in the back. This is one my friend Trish from Pinky's Farm gave me. All that is left to do is to hem this. Now this curls a lot, so I would not leave it unhemmed. I find this very true to size. This is a size 3T, and the instructions call for you to turn it up 1/2 inch and hem. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna serge, and the serge section will be a 1/4 inch, and then I'll turn it up. I think it'll give me a neater looking hem. The width of this stitching is a 1/4 inch. So if I fold it up once, that's a 1/4 inch hem. If I fold it up twice, that'll give me a 1/2 inch hem. So I can choose to fold it double like this and decide, do I like that thickness? Is it going to make it a little weightier? Or do I just want to bring it up 1/2 inch? I think if I did a double, that would certainly be the quicker, easier route to go. It's also going to make that hem a little weightier. And I think that's going to be fine in this instance. So I'm going to take my time. I'm going to go around my hem, folding it, making sure that I'm getting it just right. I'm going to clip it, then I'm going to head over to the sewing machine, sew the hem, and we're done. So here we go. It was very quick to pin this or clip it. You see, I folded it over twice after serging it. So all I have left to do is to do a simple hem. I'm going to take my stitch length to 3.5, still using the Maraflex thread. I'm going to put my arm back on the sewing machine. And away I go. My dress is finished and it's absolutely adorable. I love how this green band coordinates well with the colors in the fabric, the alligator, the palm trees. We've got the nice gentle gathers in the back. It is just so sweet and it's comfortable in the hot weather. So my granddaughter lets me know by wearing it over and over again. So I've got a dress for her and I still have plenty of this fabric left over. So I've got an idea of what I'm going to make with this to coordinate with a little racerback tea dress. Stay tuned for that. It'll be another sew along.